So good evening, everyone. I think I know many of you. I'm Patrick Mann. I'm the director of the School for Advanced Studies in the Arts and Humanities, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our fall orientation and program launch. I'm going to begin with the land acknowledgement. Western University is situated on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, Lenape, and the Attawandaron peoples who have long-standing relationships to the land and region of southwestern Ontario and the City of London. The local First Nation communities of this area include the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. In the region, there are 11 First Nations communities and a growing Indigenous urban population. Western values the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and all of the original peoples of Turtle Island.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Patrick. It's a great pleasure to be with you this evening. I also come from the arts and humanities discipline. I studied English as an undergraduate, and although my parents were very worried that I would be unemployed, I'm doing okay. Here I am. I'm working with you. I'm super thrilled to be joining Western. I'm arriving from Montreal. I wanted to say just a couple words about studying the arts and humanities in this era. We're really in a historical moment when a lot of the attention, a lot of the glory goes to the STEM disciplines, science, technology, engineering, math, and so forth. In this historical moment, studying arts and humanities is as important now as it's ever been, and it's going to continue to be so important to us. We're living in a moment of historical revolution that we're not really able to fully comprehend and get outside of and see from a distance. We can look at the printing press and what happened then, we can look at the Industrial Revolution, but we are right in the middle of all this stuff. And it is profoundly shaping what it means to be human, actually. It's changing what it means to be alive. And I don't think you will be cyborgs, but your children may be, and your children's children. Like, where's it all going? And the disciplines that are really well suited to engage these fundamental questions that are so important to the future of human beings and all the other animals on Earth is the arts and humanities. So I would say you've made a good choice. I hear good things about SASAH. Is that how you say it? SASAH? I'm super thrilled to be here. Western's a great place. You made a good choice. And I hope you have a wonderful first year, and I'll give you the same advice. Some of you were just coming from another event I was at. I gave advice to first-year students. I kept it very clean this time. I said, eat your vegetables, get enough sleep, and get some exercise, especially important for the egghead bookworm types like me. Get enough exercise, and what that allows you to do is actually take good care of your mental health, that you get enough sleep, you get a decent nutrition, and you get some exercise. I was always a couch potato type when I was young. So taking care of yourself and taking care of each other, that really matters on your big quest for this program. So thank you again. Thanks for inviting me, and I hope you have a wonderful and great year. Thanks a lot. Have a great year.
But what I want to do, really up front, is to welcome you all. Some of you I recognize as first-year people, and many of you I recognize as no longer first-year people. You've progressed, and we all do. So I really just want to say welcome, and welcome to this fabulous educational enterprise that is SASAH. As the president said, and I'll just repeat a little bit, these are amazing times. We own important parts of these times. You do, right? You are here to study and to participate in an educational undertaking that really will help shape the future. We're all mesmerized by the technology, but all the technology is really dumb until somebody puts some heart and soul into it. And that's really what our program here and what the Faculty of Arts and Humanities is about. It's about thinking about who we are as people, what's really important, what's beautiful, what's worth doing, and that's what Patrick is going to lead you through. No pressure, Patrick, as you go through the various stages of the SASAH program. So we're all, in our faculty, pulling for you. You are champions for what really matters, and I look forward to seeing you throughout the year and following your progress through all the fabulous projects that you're going to take. So Bon courage, as they say back in Montreal, where apparently I'm from, and have a fabulous year. Thank you so much.
I want to recognize that SASAH is certainly made up of a huge community, and you are part of it. And firstly, in regard to that, I want to pay special attention to our invited faculty member, Jamili Hassan, who is teaching our fourth-year capstone course. So if you just want to stand up for a second, Jamili. Thank you. Jamili's an award-winning visual artist based here in London, Ontario. She's coordinated numerous cultural programs, including Orientalism and Ephemera, and her mixed media installations have been shown in Canada and internationally and collected by the National Gallery of Canada. In 2018, she was awarded an honorary Doctor of Fine Arts at OCAD University, and her course this year is going to connect the local and the global, and will bring to Western a host of important and timely guests. And of course, you see a whole list of who is SASAH. The other two people I would pick out very quickly are the two people who are teaching our curriculum project courses in the second year this year. And so, first of all, Dr. Constanza Barakua is teaching a course on film festivals around the world and at TIFF. And you saw Cameron Bailey up there. It's a second-year course called Beyond the Red Carpet. And Professor Ara Suksi is focusing in the second term with second years on classical Greek tragedy and themes of trauma and anger. And her course is entitled Performing Homer's Iliad. So we're really fortunate to have a very exciting year ahead of us. And I do note all of our student organizations, and there are even more things going on behind the scenes.
As SASAH's experiential learning coordinator, I oversee and in some cases help students to find community-engaged learning opportunities, paid and unpaid internships, or independent projects with a community-engaged or career-related component. EL, experiential learning, activities are designed, among other things, to give students, to give you, real-world experience, to allow students to realize the soft skills that they're developing in the arts and humanities are valued outside the academy, to develop your skills further, and to apply theoretical knowledge in real-world settings. Our students are doing great things with their EL opportunities. We have students excelling in internship and community-engaged learning opportunities and developing unique and compelling projects. I have had nothing but glowing reports about SASAH students from their on-site supervisors. And the students are gaining great experience. They're professionalizing, exploring career options, or pursuing their passion projects. They're bursting out of the Western bubble to engage with the communities beyond our gates. Some have had career and life-altering experiences, and all have had experiences that help them to feel better prepared for the world that awaits them after graduation. To give you a sense of how varied and exciting SASAH experiential learning can be, we've asked 3 fourth-year students to talk briefly about their very successful EL experiences. So first, I will ask Victoria Burnett to come up. She completed a CEL here in London and then went far afield for her second experience.
Hello. So as Barbara said, my name is Victoria, fourth-year SASAH student. My other major is in classical studies. And with SASAH, I've been fortunate enough to complete both of my internships already. As Barbara said, I did it at the Museum of Archaeology here in London, and the far afield one that I did was the Vindolanda Archaeological Field School through the Classical Studies Department. With the Museum of Archaeology, one of the main things that I did was research. And there were 2 main research projects that I was helping with. One was the history of maple sugar, which is the blog post up there. And the other one was getting things ready to launch a Google Institute project for the museum. Museums from all across the world can have their own exhibitions and honestly even virtual tours on Google. What I was doing there was, again, getting research together and figuring out what kind of story we wanted to tell about London. So the story that I decided I wanted to tell, specifically about the Museum of Archaeology, was focusing on children and families, especially women. So as I said, my second internship was at the Vinalanda Archaeological Field School. It's along Hadrian's Wall, and it was a Roman military fort. So some of the photos up here are actually from when I worked at the 1812 site, just so I could show a little bit of difference. The one in the bottom right corner here with the orange shirt gal, that's actually how we processed our artifacts. We would essentially take a cat litter box of dirt out of our unit and dump it over a metal screen, which you can see in the top middle photo, and shake it. Artifacts stayed on top, or anything too big to fall through the holes, dirt fell down. So I went to Vinalanda and I was like, yep, I know exactly what I'm doing. No. Picture of me in the bottom left corner, that's how we processed our dirt. We sat and we went through wheelbarrows of dirt. Some of it was very ancient manure, and man, did it stink. In both cases, there was a problem of preservation that we had to deal with, both on-site and off. What was left behind didn't always tell the whole story, so we didn't want to extrapolate too much, but we also didn't want to extrapolate not enough. There were cases where museums had historical collections where things were taken care of in ways that didn't fit with our current values and our current practices. So museums constantly have to make decisions about that, how they're going to show things to the public, how are they going to be open and honest about what their collections are, the story that they're telling, and also how are they going to continue to conserve something. So this is from the Corbridge Museum. This window display, I think, actually kind of sums up everything that I really learned in both cases. So what this is it's different pieces of stonework that were found on that site, and they've put them in front of a window. The background is actually the archaeological site itself. It's no longer an active excavation, but what it's supposed to be doing is that it's supposed to be forcing the perspective of the visitors. And that's what really got my attention. Because the museum curator there was trying to say, look, here are the things, but if you just see them standing on a wall or in a museum that doesn't have windows, you don't really make the full connection with what you're looking at. And that's something that I'm very interested in, is how can we get people to understand what they're looking at and make those connections. So you get to see perspective of height, you get to connect those things back with where they came from.
So I'm Alex, I'm in my 4th year of SASAH. I'm also doing a major in math and a minor in English. ANOVA is the merger and rebranding of what used to be Sexual Assault Centre London and Women's Community House. I got this awesome mentor. Her name was Annalise Trudell, and she is probably one of the most intelligent and well-spoken people I could have ever met and been matched up with. And I got to follow her to all of her meetings and her presentations, learn about her job, learn about how she approaches these difficult topics and engages with her audiences. I got to co-facilitate with her for a few presentations, and then we'd talk afterwards, what went well, what didn't go well, what do I need to change for next time? And then after that, I was kind of on my own because she went off on mat leave. So I had a lot of presentations on a lot of different topics, and it was really, really interesting. So I got to talk about things like consent and sexual violence and rape culture in the media to audiences like Huron students or Western frats or adults with disabilities at Hutton House, as well as youth groups. So a lot of different types of audiences in there. Some presentations on healthy masculinity to the London Knights. Worked with some disability service worker groups at Fanshawe to talk about how their clients might be facing some different problems when it comes to sex and relationships than they would be facing themselves, as well as talking about how to make inclusive workplace practices at Goodwill. So those were a couple just different types of topics, and for me they were really interesting and really relevant. So the best part of my project was the fact that I got to discover a topic I didn't know I was passionate about before, and then I didn't just get to study it at school, but I got to actually go out into my community and make a difference. And for me, that was really rewarding and really interesting, as opposed to just writing an essay. I was like, no, I'm actually in my community and making some small changes in my small corner of the world, which was really cool. I also got to work on developing professional skills. So actually in a workplace, how do my writing skills make a difference? How does my communication skills actually come into play? How does teamwork actually play out in a job, and working on leadership styles and, if I was running this meeting, what would I be doing differently versus what's going really well for this team right now? And I found that really, really useful just for trying to market myself for future jobs and thinking about grad school and being like, why do my skills matter and how are they actually going to be useful in the future, and what is my education right now actually teaching me for the real world? So for me, it was really cool to actually see that in play. But I think the biggest takeaway is my confidence went up a lot from this internship. It kind of had to, walking into a room, sometimes a couple hundred people that I didn't know, talking to them about sex, talking to them about uncomfortable topics, and then trying to handle all the weird questions they threw at me with like a little bit of grace, which didn't always happen, but maybe sometimes. And I also got to, value my work and my time a little bit more, because I'm really good at, admitting when I don't know something. I'm great at owning that, and I'm great at being the dumbest person in the room, because I think you learn the most when you're in that situation, and I love that. But I think after this, I'm a little bit better at owning when I do know things and how my skills are actually valuable and how my education is actually going to move places and take me somewhere in the future. So for me, that was probably the most rewarding part of this experience that I wouldn't have had just at school.
My name is Amelia. I am a fourth-year SASAH student, also in English Language and Literature and Scholars Electives. But today I'm going to be talking about this neat little thing I did called the North Meets South Exchange. The basics of what that is that it was a partnership between the Junior Economic Club of Canada and the Canadian Roots Exchange. It brought together 10 Indigenous youth, mainly from Thunder Bay area, though a couple were from the London area, which was really neat for me, and 10 non-Indigenous youth, mostly from Southern Ontario. So there were a few from Ottawa, and then there were a few from the GTA, like myself. And we were supposed to work together on creating a public policy framework. I've never taken a political science course. I did not know what a public policy framework looked like or what it was supposed to include. But I think one thing I've gained from SASAH, and I'm sure a lot of the up-ears can attest to this, is that it makes you do a lot of things you might not necessarily know anything about when you start. So just to show you kind of the difference between the 2 weeks. So this is a nature hike we did. This is a lookout point we went to. This is kind of my view every day. We were right by the lake. This was the Ojibwe Cultural Center, which had a bit of a residential school museum, as well as the beading workshop. This was the remnants of an Indian day school, which is where students would go when they weren't enrolled in residential school, so they voluntarily went there. So the good kids is how our guide Sunset kind of explained it to us. So that was a very kind of haunting exhibit to see, but it was also important to see that right where we were learning about all these places is where it happened. And then we also had the alpaca farm. There's the alpaca. There were many of them, it wasn't just that one. And then there was also, we really got immersed in life on a reserve, in that there were res dogs or reserve dogs. So this is Smokey. He would come into the cultural center we worked in every day and literally just come in with the ball and just sit with us. I called him our unofficial therapy dog because sometimes we had really heavy moments and you'd always happen to run in at those times. Oh, this is one last photo of me and my friend Jonathan. We were practicing a song that we just learned in a language we just learned on an instrument we just learned. So it went about as well as you can imagine. But it was a really great experience to kind of experience the culture and kind of work that practice of sharing and education. Conversely, in Toronto, we went to a Blue Jays game, got myself a foot long. We also went to Toronto Island, and this is kind of one of the offices we were in at PwC. So this was our networking and kind of job readiness workshop. So they were really trying to not only teach us about Anishinaabe culture, but also prepare us for the workforce and prepare us for this pitch day. My group's focus was on preventing or developing strategies to help prevent Indigenous youth suicide rates from going up in rural areas. So that's us presenting on the stage, and those are some of our judges. And then that's us singing a song. Me on the right and Rachel in the middle are not Indigenous, and then Anella and Davy, who are the other two girls in floral dresses, are actually from London area and they are Indigenous, so that was a really cool experience for us to kind of all share together. And then this is all of us all together, so all of the people that worked with us as well as the entire group. It was truly life-changing, and I don't think you ever think you're gonna have those moments, or at least know you're having them when you're in them. But I knew this project was going to be pretty special from the application itself, because I could tell it really wanted to get to know me instead of hear me tell them what I thought they wanted them to hear. And also to see an all-female leadership team. So all these women just on the right here, just huge role models for me now because they're on Bay Street along with the rest of them, running the show, running Canada's national podium of record. So kind of having that mentorship opportunity as well was super important to me. So that was a bit about my experience, and thank you for listening.
I don't have much to say. The main thing I want to say is that I didn't make this film. The students made this film. Patrick came to me with a terrifying proposition, which was, would I do something with the second term, fourth year students that went back to Indigenous matters because they worked with Shelley Nero and to something in the past. And with me in first year, we had done projects on World War I soldiers. And I've always been fascinated by the plaque in the main entrance to University College, where all the World War I soldiers who died from these areas around here are listed. And there's 11 names of Indigenous soldiers. So I looked for a way to put this together, and I pushed, pulled, dragged the fourth year students into doing a documentary film, research on these soldiers, and then doing a film on it. I was a facilitator, but the students did everything. They wrote the interview questions, they conducted the interviews, they ran the cameras, they set up the lighting, they edited the film, they composed the music for it, they set up the story, the storyboard, and the storyline. The only thing I said was, we start with the plaque, and I kind of insisted that we end with the custodian, Barney.
As Lawrence said, when he came to us with this idea, it was very open-ended. One of the amazing things about SASAH, I think, is that it always encourages that exploration and that open-endedness and that creativity. And so it was very much open to us to take it in whatever direction we felt it deserved to go in. And we knew that Lawrence was there to support us and to encourage us and to guide us, but it wasn't so much a professorial-student relationship as you might see in a lot of courses. One thing that we thought was very important was that we are, for the most part, non-Indigenous students, and we wanted to make sure that we were respecting their experience and putting their experience front and center. And we recognized as well that it's almost impossible to tell a story without filtering it. So we tried to reflect it back to the people we were interviewing and make sure that we were telling the story that they wanted to tell, not just the story that we thought would come across well. So hopefully we did a good job. I think we're showing a little bit of it.